incumbent chose not to turn his papers and run. And they're being challenged by Matt Babcock, who can't be here today, he's away for this weekend, and Rome Capobianco, who lives on Andover Road. I think it's important that we mentioned this during the Selectmen's roundtable discussion, that people get out and vote. The planning board makes major decisions that have a huge impact on the vision of this community, eventually ends up being our community profile, and I'm a firm believer that failure to plan is a plan to fail. So I think that the planning board has a vital role in this community, and I encourage everybody to pay attention, listen closely. The candidates are going to have a chance to ask each other questions, touch on topics that we've all been briefed on, and make some informed decisions when you go to the polls on April 6th. Polls will be open from 8 to 8. We did do some redistricting in the town. If you're not sure where you should be voting, you should call the town clerk's office at 978-671-0924, and they can inform you which precinct to go vote at. And again, it's going to be April 6th from 8 to 8. So we'll jump right into the discussion. I'd like to introduce Rome Capobianco to my immediate right, who's a candidate to the planning board. And then to his right is Bob Casey, who is an incumbent seeking re-election. And all the way at the end of the table is Dave Kinsella, who is also seeking re-election. And you guys got the questions that we want to, the topics we want to cover. So I'll start with Dave, and we'll work right around to Rome about what you like about Billerica and why you're running for the planning board. Go ahead, Dave.
What do I like? Thanks, Jack. What do I like about Billerica? I like the fact that we have several rivers in town. We have 2 rivers in town. We have several bodies of water. We've maintained the historic character of our town very successfully. We're very open-minded to new businesses and growing and thriving as a community. I believe in the people in Billerica. I can tell you as an architect, I make my living here in Billerica, and the community has been very good to me. So these are some of the things that I value in the community.
Bob?
Yes, thanks, Jack. It is a good question. It's a great way to start a debate. But I think I like the fact that Billerica is a fairly diverse community. I consider it, like some other cities and towns, a community of neighborhoods and with distinct characters. And of course, growing up in Billerica, I think the feel for the neighborhoods was even more distinct than perhaps it is now as we've gotten bigger and kind of grown. But I like the feel of, I've lived in the center virtually my whole life. But there's such great neighborhoods up in North Billerica. You've got the center is sort of like considered the core of the historic district, but then you've got all the history that's involved up in North Billerica with the industrial revolution and the mills and the plants and some of the beautiful homes. You go down to Pinehurst, which evolved from really a vacation community, and Nuttings Lake as well. So I like the feel of the town and the various sections of it. I also like the, again, as Dave mentioned, I mean, the people in Billerica are very community and civic minded. Even sometimes people think they're not too involved in politics, and maybe that's true sometimes. But look at all the enthusiasm and interest with our youth sports programs in Billerica, and the tremendous amount of interest that the community puts into maintaining those facilities, such as the Boys and Girls Club and our athletic fields, the music programs in Billerica, the schools. There's a whole lot to like, and also, as Dave mentioned, our waterways and natural resources, very important.
Thanks. Well,
the thing that I like about Billerica is the waterways, and I grew up down in the Pines, and we had the Shawshene River, and I did a lot of fishing, ice skating, numerous things, and it's just a great place. And I'd like to see it stay the same. I'd like to see, especially the kids, to go fishing. And anyway, the other thing is I was born and brought up here, and I'd like to see the town stay the way it is. And I think that I want to be on the planning board to, I've seen the work that these two fine gentlemen have done, and I'd like to be on there with them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so let's jump into the next topic. Bob, you had mentioned, I'm going to start with you, and I like that response, by the way, that neighborhood character, because I think that's important for that to be in the back of the mind of any planning board member, especially when we're talking about industrial, commercial properties that abut residential areas, new residential areas going in the middle of an existing residential area, you know, what do they call those, pork chop lots, stuff like that. So based on that, and I guess whatever else you have to offer, what's your vision for the town going forward? I mean, we're in the 21st century. We obviously have to continuously expand our commercial industrial base, which is good for our tax rate. And also, even the center of town, as we all know, that was a controversial issue the last time, or the last election, with the reconfiguration and redoing the center, and even the Barica Mall. And there's a master plan, I believe, an updated master plan. So what's your vision?
That's, well, we'll do the vision thing. 'cause
Okay.
A lot of parts of that question.
I know.
Basically, well, one of the first things you said was the commercial and industrial development and expansion. It's good for our it's good for our taxes. And it is, and just in the last year in the planning board, we more or less expedited approval for the solar development project over on Pond Street, which is taking a piece of land that had no productivity or value and will now generate probably 300,000 plus per year. And by the way, and I don't always do this, I will credit town administration for bringing that kind of a project into Billerica, and the planning board, of course, we worked very hard and quickly and expedited the approval. And that's a good example of positive economic development. But then over the years, you know, I've seen some areas where I think we can do better with how we develop our community on the industrial commercial areas. We have problems in our neighborhoods, as you mentioned. Billerica zoning from way back before all of us probably wasn't handled too well, because we have industrial areas right up against commercial areas. And it's kind of unfortunate. If you know, I was just down Cook Street the other day, and Cook Street is an example of beautiful homes and then industrial, and kind of heavy industrial right next to it. So I think coming to some decisions about how do we control the kinds of development that are near the residential areas, that's something that's important. Also, to take, the center is important. I've supported various efforts, including the mixed-use development, to protect and reinvigorate the center. But overall, I think if we look at Boston Road as our main corridor, Boston Road, I think we have some problems with. And I haven't been seeing many projects coming to the planning board that would represent sort of improving the look of our main street and some of the shopping and dining selections. And you know, I'm amazed how many people mention how they'd like to see better retail options in Billerica, better restaurants. And I think sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot when we don't really plan out what we want in certain areas and sort of go with the plan. You mentioned we have a master plan and we're supposed to update it. The problem with our current master plan, which is a great document, is that I don't think there's been enough attention in town hall to really follow it and to use it. I think you got to stick to a plan and grow the community out from the core of that plan.
How about you, Dave?
I think, Jack, that some of the comments that Bob made, I'd piggyback on. One of the things that I'd like to see happen is removal of the spot zoning, better definition between uses and neighborhoods. Like, for example, I agree with Bob with Cook Street. Another area is Pond Street, some homes. And then on the other side, you have some heavy industrial uses. It seems to be that they're in conflict. The nice thing there is that they're separated by the street, as is Cook Street. And another problem that I see with this spot zoning is a lot of less desirable developments or types of development tend to go into zones which they're really not appropriate for, like 40Bs, for example. Developers will pick on an industrial area for a 40B because they know the amount of resistance that they're gonna get is gonna be minimal. And then the people go live there, and then they have a problem with the long-standing industrial uses. So I like to see conflicts like that.
So we kind of get stuck with the ramifications of a 40B dropped in the middle of an industrial center.
Yeah.
And of course, the 40B law allows basically carte blanche, do whatever you want, as long as you kind of minimally comply.
But it also, I don't want to put on 40B, but I think it's other uses that are not acceptable. Like, my office is down off of Bridge Street, and I go down Boston Road every day, and I like the Concord River. I love the whole corridor of Concord River going from Boston Road over to West Billerica, Route 4. And I think that when we build buildings right on top of the Concord River, we're deteriorating the attribute of the river. The scenic views, using masonry railings. I don't want to be an idealist, but
Yeah.
basically my point is to open up those views for people to enjoy them and take advantage of the river, to go fishing, like Romy had pointed out. Other things that are the green, I like to see our town push green, similar to the Schaefer landfill. Let's see, character of the town, better definition of the neighborhoods. Like, I think North Billerica, Iron Horse Park, we know is a Superfund site. I feel like that could be turned into a national museum, right? I mean, a train museum. And if there were some, it has to be cleaned up, but then some initiative to make it a destination or an attribute of Billerica, that people could capitalize on.
Sure.
I wrote some notes, just like, another thing that helps any community is business, right?
Right.
So I'd like to see, like E.M. Serrano came in. Both Bob and I were involved I was involved in the tail end of it. Bob was involved in the initial piece of it because I'm not a freshman anymore, but I guess Bob's a
Bob's the
senior.
veteran, huh?
No offense.
So,
It didn't take long to get there, only in 6 years, yeah.
But,
I'm second in seniority in the board.
all right, let me give Rome a chance for your vision for the town going forward.
And then I want to tangle with some of what he said.
Okay.
We're supposed to do that, right?
Yeah, we'll get to it.
My vision is to see the town save money by different things. One of them is, for 20 years, I've been trying to get him to do composting. And like Lexington, I kind of wish that we were like them. They're making $500,000 a year on their process down there. They're taking leaves from all the surrounding towns and turning it into what they call black gold. And there's other ways that bring businesses in, but I am really against giving them a tax break. And if you have a company that's a multi-billion-dollar company that wants to come in here and get a tax break, I'm against that. I see people struggling to pay their taxes and making payments. And, I think that the town has got to tighten its belt, and we've got some real good employees, and we need more. But I think that highway department needs more, and that's about it.
All righty. You wanted to make a comment, Bob? Jump in?
Yes, actually, not really to disagree with what David said, but the issue of the industrial development abutting with various neighborhoods, this is a big concern of mine. And recently, there was a industrial site on Cook Street that was fairly quiet, the old peanut factory, and we all woke up one morning to find out that a recycling facility had been, given the green light to go in there, and now residents who weren't even notified are finding heavy truck traffic on this street. And first of all, this, maybe we'll get to it later, but I myself, one of the main premises of our zoning laws is to relieve congestion in our streets, not to create it and aggravate it. So, you know, how something like that just appears without going through boards and without public input bothers me. And then, I mean, I think we all know that there's a rumor that another even larger facility is being planned on Salem Road where the old Boston Globe plant is. And I don't really, and again, from what I'm hearing, there'll be little to no input or appearances in front of town boards. I don't know how you can go forward with such big projects when they have such a major impact on our infrastructure and our neighborhoods without coming through the planning board. So,
Well, let me ask you, they're obviously talking to somebody in town.
yes.
You gotta get a permit or something, right, to
Right,
open up?
yeah.
Do some kind of renovation or step in and operate that kind of business. So who at the town level, for lack of a better phrase, isn't communicating to, you know, I guess, does the planning board wanna, something to say about this, or is it a misinterpretation of existing zoning or state statutes, do you think? or-
Well, I think there's maybe a creative interpretation of state statutes when they say, what I'm hearing, and so much is rumor, you ask people,
Right.
well, nothing's really been filed yet. But, I mean, what we have the example of Cook Street. A recycling plant is now, I think it's a smaller one, is now on Cook Street, and it's generated and reintroduced truck
Do you know how
traffic.
many tons a day are being processed? Is it a
Okay.
MRF?
I don't know, actually.
Okay.
And I probably need to get more of that information. But the problem is, it's a done deal, and it didn't go through, I don't know, I think basically, these are internal decisions being made, which means, you know, the manager's office is economic development advisor, and you've got your building department that works for the manager.
Yep.
And I think that's where permits would come from if there are no approvals. And I am very concerned about it, because we get back to vision. If we want to, I don't know why we would want to reintroduce, I don't think we're lucky at all to have a development like that going on Salem Road, because that's going to reintroduce heavy truck traffic all over town, where it's right in the, like, geographic center of the town. It's not near the highways. So I'm very concerned about that, and I am concerned that somehow or other there seems to be this practice that we're circumventing or finding ways around the elected planning board. You know, we sometimes take some heat, but we're elected officials, and we have a job.
Well, you know,
to do.
that brings me up to, Dave, you're shaking your head. Do you have a comment?
I
Why don't
want
you
to
go,
comment.
Dave, and then Rome, if you'd like to comment, because I'd like to jump into one of our topics here that I think you're alluding to that we can probably pick apart. Go ahead, Dave.
You know, this board, the planning board, is an elected group of residents, right? All the other boards in town are appointed by management across the board, except for the school board, of course, and the selectmen. Board of Appeals, Conservation, Health. Okay, so planning board is a venue for the public to come and voice their concerns about inappropriate uses, truck traffic. And you know, we constantly, in the last few interviews we've had with, we hear about, how come it takes so long? Well, because it's a process. And what the planning board does is we ask or we require traffic studies. And we have consultants available to us to review those traffic studies and to see the problems and the nuisances of, you know, uses that are not compatible. And, you know, what are the impacts to the infrastructure of the town? So I feel like, to back up what Bob's saying, is I feel like that the planning board maybe review or oversight needs to be looked at and see if more, or right now there's a 5,000 square foot cutoff on a facility, right? So facilities over that size, incompatible uses come before the planning board. And I think that
But
5,000...
I think there's other statutes that kick in.
There are.
So what happened to those?
Well, if in the zoning bylaw, if it's a compatible use under that zone, then it can go in there as a matter of right. But
Okay.
with the planning board cutoff is 5,000 square feet, so...
But I think Billerica also has, we'll call it a liberal interpretation of what's by right, because in another community, there'd be no such thing as saying, oh, that's a by right that's a by right development, and there's no input on it.
Yeah.
And especially when you read just the opening goals of our zoning bylaw, and you can see that things that are being proposed are at odds with most of the goals of our zoning bylaw, you know.
So
it's
do we need to educate our people about, I mean, this is a master plan for the town, how, our community profile. That's got to become an important discussion with people that are making day-to-day decisions for us.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like the selectmen and the planning board have to get together and figure out how we're gonna develop policies, because this has to happen. This has been voted on by the town, this is what we're supposed to be doing, because what happens is, we eventually wind up with all of a sudden, 1, 2, 3, and then all of a sudden it's like a party, and then you have a huge problem. Ron, do you have any comments on that, or?
One of the things that the planning board, something comes before them, they've been to 4 or 5 conservation, all these boards before the planning board. They should go before the planning board first and they're the planners, let's get this plan on the road. The other thing I want to mention, that I'm into, we have a few farms left in Billerica. And if I'm on the board, I'm going to do everything I could to keep those farms. I'll give you an example. A house was sold right near my farm for 2 days. In 2 days it was sold because the people wanted to live near a farm to get fresh fruits and produce. And that's where we're headed. Thanks.
Any other comments? Maybe we can jump right into that topic, because I think it leads right into it, about decisions within the scope of the planning board and recent controversial decisions.
Well, actually, you know, I saw that on the list, and also going to David's question, people say, why does it take so long to get something through the planning board? I guess I need an example, because, as I mentioned, the solar development project over on Pond Street, we did that in record time, actually, worked very hard, because it was a good project. Also, EMD Serrano, we all know, opened their international headquarters there, and again, we worked very efficiently and carefully to get that through. But last summer, people may forget that EMD Serrano, they're thinking about expanding further in Billerica, but they're not sure, and they wanted to put some temporary structures up, and they asked us to waive the zoning bylaw, the permitting process, to put some temporary structures on there as they plan out their future. And they came before the planning board, we asked some questions, and we waived it. So I really don't know what people are talking about when they say that it takes so long to get something through the planning board. Maybe if there's an example.
Well, I can probably give you an example from my experience where I work. What happens is there's a process, like you said.
Yeah,
People do a filing, and the initial review is riddled with deficiencies,
right, yeah,
because they think they're going to jam it down your throat.
exactly.
Or somebody outside of your scope has said, we're going to get this done, blah, blah, you know, the hell with the rules. And I deal with it every day of the week.
Yeah.
And then when you stand your ground, what happens is it prolongs it. And then, of course, every time there's a deficiency in the plan that needs to be corrected or reviewed, don't forget, it goes now to their people. How long do their people take to redo a plan and come back with adequate,
Yeah.
you know, justifiable information for you to make a decision that we're all going to get stuck with for a lifetime?
Yeah,
You're-
yeah.
That's exactly what happens. I
You're
deal with it every day of the
hitting,
week.
like, key
It's
points.
always our fault.
We get
actually,
applications in that aren't complete. You know,
Right.
if the developer proponent just follows our bylaw, it'll sell right through, but they never do. And then,
Yep.
in order to, like Empire Recycling, they had a fine and a cease and desist from the DEP because they were making a nuisance. So they come in, we made an informal agreement with engineering about some of the measures required. They, instead of proving that what they're saying, they come in with an incomplete application with no documentation or calculations to back it up. Our consultant says, there's not enough here for me to do a review on. So we got to continue. They go back, they do it again, and they bring back a little more, but not the full requirements. And it keeps going and going and going.
You know,
And I think-
sometimes there's this mentality that
Yeah.
I'll give you what I think you need to make my decision.
Yes.
As opposed to,
And
like
nothing
you
more.
said, I do this every day of the week. It's very clear what you need to comply.
Yeah.
And then when it comes in, well, and I've even got a sheet on my plan reviews.
Yeah.
All you have to do is check it off.
But
It's
do you-
that simple.
Do you have one example of a project that?
Oh, I don't have one because,
No, because, I mean, people say that, you know, I wasn't at the other forum when I think one of the other candidates mentioned it, but I'm curious, what projects have been stalled or not properly handled by the planning board, you know?
Well, you know,
We
my
don't
re-
vote for everything maybe, but in fact, most projects do get approved. So what are people talking about?
I
don't
tell
really
most
know.
people when they complain in my profession,
Yeah.
why don't you take a look at the file and follow the dates and the time frame and
Yeah.
and then formulate your questions and tell me if this has been unreasonably or unjustifiably
Yeah.
delayed or prolonged. Because what you'll find is it's always, I would say, a lot of the time, or probably well in excess of the majority of the time, on the applicant for not doing it correctly, or they hire, you know, just use rough figures, I don't know if it's true, you know, somebody tells them it's gonna cost $10,000 to do this plan and actually do the calculation stuff, yet they have somebody over here, oh, I'll do it for 5.
Yeah.
By the time they get down to $5,000 person, it's 15. And they blame the boards. Oh, they want this now, and I don't think they need it.
Yeah.
You know, and then
Oh, yeah.
when you're laying out that kind of cash to get something started, they fall right in. I don't think, yeah, he says you don't need it. Well, it doesn't matter what he thinks.
Yeah.
What matters
It's a
is the people that are gonna
requirement.
make the decision.
Yeah. The other thing too is the planning board operates, I think, these guidelines are established before me, so I'm not taking credit, but as a very open board to community participation. And so, if you have a project, I can't think of one now that took more than a few sessions, but that's because there were 50 neighbors and abutters that wanted to be heard. And everyone that comes to the planning board will be heard. You will not see the planning board shuffling people away and saying, we can't talk about that, you know. We really, people are allowed to come in, and if you've got a project that's generating 50 or 60 people that want to be heard, and they have a right to be heard, that's going to take some time. And very often, that's symptomatic of maybe some problems with a development a project that need to be straightened out.
The
Well, we usually do work
If I
through
can jump
it.
in here, the process, just to put it out there, is the application's taken in, there's a guideline, okay? Then it gets put on our docket, and then the public hearing's opened during the hearing. The public comes, we hear the petitioner's, request, then we have the public stand up and come through. And never do we leave early when the public is standing up to speak. Then we summarize, our consultant speaks, goes back and forth a little bit there, and then usually it's continued for one hearing. If everything's there, it's a matter of 2 hearings to get approved from the planning board. And a lot of times on the second hearing, the public comes back. And I think the issue is it's very disturbing to me. I don't think it takes a
Well,
protracted
I
process.
think it's important to mention that there's a reason why you notify abutters.
Right.
They have a right to participate in planning of the town when a project comes
Yeah.
forward. That's why you have a planning board, that's why you have open debate. And oftentimes, abutters will bring to your attention something specific to that neighborhood.
That you
I live in
know.
North Billerica. You get down to Pinehurst, people have, geez, were you aware of this, this, and this?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, okay, now we have to fix it.
And
And
that's why-
unfortunately,
Yeah.
tough luck.
And that's
We have-
why-
we- You have to pay attention
It's
to
a
the
very
abutters. That's who you serve.
This is why I'm very disturbed about the fact that one recycling plant opened on Cook Street, and nobody knew that it was coming. You're not notifying the neighbors, so.
Well, there's something wrong with
Yes.
that picture.
Yeah, and then Salem Road, if that's really materializing, and they're gonna try to do that without any community input, that's really a travesty.
Isn't there a host agreement? Do we get so much per ton to town, or? I mean, all those things, generally generate significant revenue for the town, not only in the form of taxes, and if trucks are parked there, the excise tax collection, but the fact that you are a host community and they're tearing up your streets,
Right.
there's a whole discussion that goes on about, here's how you're going to operate, here's how the town, gets mitigation money effectively.
Yeah.
It's so much per ton.
Yeah.
That's,
Well,
I mean, those are the
we-
two topics in that whole
We
thing.
continually try to bring that out during our hearings, so that the public knows, hey, this is going here, it's contributing X dollars in tax revenue to the
Right.
schools. But a lot of times, it's very difficult to get that information to make it transparent so that the public knows, like the Schaefer landfill. That,
Right.
Bob mentioned 300,000 in taxes, that's it. Plus there's back taxes owed, and there's more to that deal. I know it's in litigation,
Right.
so I'm not at liberty to speak about it.
Negotiation.
Negotiation.
Yeah.
I
No one's
think,
been
I think
sued,
that, on that, that was a good thing, the Schaefer landfill, and I watched David Kinsella. He's the one that got that thing moving, and it's a good thing, the taxes, that land is useless, but the town is moving forward, and they're gonna get some money out of this, and this is what I vision for the town of Billerica, is saving money instead of spending money and hiring consultants and doing studies that we don't need. We got a planning board, and I think every should go before the planning board, before anything.
Well, let me jump on to another topic. Let me ask you, strictly on the planning board, since you raised the issue that people perceive that there's some kind of a delay or a long-term, is there anything that the planning board can do, I'll start with Rome, to streamline the process, or what have you done to streamline the process, so that the folks at home know that maybe it's a myth and there's misinformation out there? Well, since you're not there, Rome, how would you streamline the process? Is there an example of something that you're familiar with that
Well,
might have
I
been
think,
streamlined, where it might have gone on for too long, in your opinion?
I think that everything should go before the planning board. They're the planners. They're planning what this town is doing. I don't care what it is. It should go before the planning board. I mean, what does planning mean? We're planning for the residents. Amen.
What about the notion that if it takes too long, or
Well,
the only time I ever hear it takes too long is from a proponent. That's so it's kind of like a one-sided argument, a one-sided complaint. And again, I'll go back to my experience for 35 years has been the reason it's taken so long is because you can't get the information you require. You require to make an informed decision to protect the town. That's our business. And what people think you need may not necessarily be what you decide you need to make an informed decision. And like I said, again, tough luck if you can't. I have a habit of spelling things out exactly when I need to make a decision. If you can't follow it, that's not. Why do we always have to feel like it's our problem? We're doing something wrong.
We could get, just in the way of streamlining, there could be more upfront work with the proponent or the developer before the application's taken in. Like, for example, the application needs to be complete. That's
Right.
a big problem. Another big problem that I know frustrates Bob is that we get our submittals, our consultant gets the submittals at the last minute. So he or she doesn't have adequate time to review the application and give the planning board technical feedback so we can make informed decisions. So I would say, stuff's not in by the deadline, you kick to the next hearing, right? Another thing is, if the town planner,
Yep.
Tony Field, is very knowledgeable, as was Peter Kennedy, and I believe if they sat down with the consultant, the developer, and his team, and then discuss the issues more in depth to make sure that there's a tighter package being sent.
So is that direction that the planning board needs to give to the town planner? Sounds to me like it shouldn't even be scheduled for a hearing until the plan's submitted and you have a first review.
Well, that's usually true.
It shouldn't be. Is
Yeah.
that the process?
Usually there will have been a first review by our consultants, but if there isn't, then it's really like they know they're coming in to present it, and then we're going to, but usually, I'd say 90% of the time, we've already had a look, our consultants have looked at it, and we've had time to review it.
Another thing that I mentioned the last time was that, and what Romy piggybacked on was that planning board should review the thing first. You don't go seek relief until you have a project that's approved. In Billerica, it's opposite. And as an architect, I've done this in the state, out of the state, And it just boggles my mind that planning board does not review first and try to eliminate relief from Board of Appeals or conservation. I mean, I get it that conservation has to do a review, or Board of Health on a restaurant or a septic system, but planning board should be consulted first. And then we say to them, move the building away from the wetlands, you're in the buffer zone. You can
Right.
easily do it. And that can come from our consultant, the engineer or the technical person that we hired to review these applications and eliminate some of the process. I don't mean to, you know.
I think also, looking at it more from an organizational viewpoint, one of the things I had hoped when Mr. Curran came on board 3 years ago was that he would basically take the planning, building, ZBA, zoning board of appeals, and possibly conservation, and put them in one sort of agency. Consolidate them with you know, some sort of universal administration going on. That's probably a bad term, but with one person kind of overseeing. And so
Well, that makes sense.
that
When you
would-
get a project in,
Yes,
everybody comment,
Yes.
and let's get this thing rolling, all in one office.
yes.
Flush it out.
But we
And a
have.
manager to say, okay, this is, your-
Yeah.
you know, rather than just
But
sit
we're-
around waiting for stuff to come.
But
I
we
want
are
this
dealing,
done.
we are dealing with
Yeah.
various empires, we're all unto ourselves, and that, you know, zoning board of appeals, and they're appointed by the selectmen, so, you know, that they come in, I actually don't know how they do it. I guess they're very smart people, but they come in, they don't have, we have our town planner sitting at the end of the table, sort of administering, helping administer our business and advising us, and I think if, for instance, just a simple thing of assigning him to work with the zoning board of appeals, there'd be automatically an articulation between what the two boards are doing. But, you know, I really had hoped that that would happen. In fact, I think in the interviewing process, it was something that was talked about way back. But it hasn't happened, and I'm sure there are obstacles. But I would like to see that happen. I think that could,
One of the questions on the list is how can we be more business friendly, right? So that's an answer right there. You get development, you know, a development person involved with the development, the planning, the nuts and bolts, you know, she's.
There's
bringing-
somebody organized on a day-to-day basis, a pre-development meeting.
Yes.
And I would hope that our professionals can sit in that room and off the top of their head say, this is gonna be a
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's
think-
been there
I think-
long enough, they're
yeah.
paid very well. That would give guidance to any proponent.
I think they hold their pre-development meetings among the building commissioner, the planner, et cetera, the group. But in terms of the boards, I think they all operate kind of independent of one another.
Right.
And I think that's still, that's a problem. And I think
I'm a
that could help.
business, I want to come into town, right? And I've been approached by the town. Doesn't it make sense for me to meet with the planning board or the board of appeals and the person and say, hey, you know what can we do to streamline the process, right? Well, you know, you don't have enough clearance for the fire truck, or you're in the wetlands, or, you know, the planning board's gonna wanna see, you know, stormwater retention, because that's part of our bylaw. You don't have an adequate amount of space, so you need to scale back your building to get the space, or ask for a waiver. And then they should come to us and say, hey, we need a waiver for this. We've been
Right.
through the development process in the town, you know, and it's been approved, and this is what we believe is the requirement.
Another way to streamline the planning board is, I really believe, and I'll give you an example, they should have their own attorney. That situation down in Pinehurst, the planning board voted 7 against that project. Their hands are tied.
You're talking about the cell tower.
I'm talking about the cell tower, and the resident ended up paying $10,000. And, you know, those towers are no good around children. But if you guys had a lawyer,
Yeah.
and it could have saved that homeowner $10,000.
Well, I think also if the, you know, the planning board has a job to do with wireless facilities and to issue the permits. And when the Billerica Planning Board, I don't think has failed to permit many cell towers, maybe just one. And that one, and I think, first of all, because we're the ones that are the guardians of the bylaw and that apply our own bylaw, when we can write a decision that shows that plan flunked the bylaw badly, I think that our town manager and our board of selectmen should have said, well, they're elected, they have a job to do, they did it, and let's respect an independently elected board. But it is a very dangerous precedent, and maybe one possibility is for the planning board to have its own legal counsel, or access to counsel at least, because the board of selectmen, the manager, essentially said, you will not have counsel. And so the decision we made, we were not allowed to defend, and they just cut their own deal with the wireless facility. And as it turns out, they were saying, you don't have a case and you're going to cost us money. They're the ones that have generated a lawsuit. And again, as Romy pointed out, I mean, our bylaw says that you can't put a cell tower within, I think, 500 or 800 feet of a fire station or town hall or one of our schools, places where municipal workers are. But it's okay to put one 40 feet from the edge of a soccer field and on the banks of the Shawshene River, which floods. And, you know, we have a responsibility to protect our open spaces and waterways. And so I think that's one of the more disgraceful things that has gone on in the last 2 or 3 years.
How do we correct it? Is there a way that the planning board can get their own attorney or their own legal counsel, or
I guess
some process?
we could probably go to town meeting and maybe transfer a sum from the existing legal account and put it in the planning board legal account.
I
But-
think the town charter needs to change.
I would add a warrant article completely spelled out, because then you have the intent of the appropriation and a specific purpose.
We're not saying that, I don't think the planning board should have its own funding source, but I think it should have access to legal counsel as a line item
Absolutely.
in the budget. And then I believe the selectmen, the town manager should manage those funds. But we should be able to go to council so that, you know, there's an inherent conflict. If the town is the proponent of of an application, that's a conflict, right?
Yeah.
So we need our own attorney so that we can be
Yeah.
able to stand in favor of the taxpayers and what we believe the bylaws say. And then when you have the town management overseeing the funding and who we have for
Yep.
legal counsel or not, it's a problem.
And to me, it goes back to the vision question. I mean, and by the way, the planning board approved a cell tower way up in the back near the dog pound area, which is, you know, open land out there, but
Right.
it's in the middle of nowhere, pretty much. But, you know, do we really want to have a cell tower that you have to walk by to get to the field that's 40 feet from where the children play? That's a very nice little field that's developed over the years down at Ackerson.
Coach my
put-
daughter's soccer team
Yeah,
down
to
there.
put a cell tower down there that the parents will be standing literally next to watch a game for, what, $30,000 a year in revenue?
Yeah.
I think it's so short-term, like a lot of other things that sometimes come up. We're actually dragging down our value by doing some of these things.
Did anybody do an EMF study on that, electromagnetic field study on that, and the effect on human health?
Well, as you,
There was a study done, but I'll go out on a limb here. I think that the studies are showing that it's not so much a health issue, though some people dispute it.
Right.
well, also, the federal telecommunication law forbids using that as a criteria. That wasn't one of our criteria.
Right.
Affecting our open space, you know, there are other suitable sites right in the area for a cell
It's in the
tower.
floodplain.
It's in the floodplain, it's next to the river. But health is not, appropriateness of the site is, but health isn't. So we had to take that right off the,
You know, as an architect, right, I'm interested in the scenic views in the
Right,
community.
sure.
And by plunking a cell tower, that river is, again, another asset that's unique to Billerica. By plunking a cell tower there, it's just,
Yep.
and, you know, we have, in the bylaw, it does say, if it affects the scenic view,
and I'm
Well,
not,
let
I'm not an architect, but I agree, it does affect the scenic view.
Let
and
me,
I care about that a lot.
me too.
Let me jump on the TIF question that I think Romy brought up, tax incentive program.
Yeah.
What does TIF stands for, what? Tax incentive? or tax
know,
incentive
Jack.
project, TIP. Well anyways, it provides a tax incentive for new companies coming in.
Yeah.
Now, Rome, you had mentioned, I think, that you were against that.
I am definitely against it. I'll give you an example. That project on Salem Road, that fellow that owns the rubbish company, Waste Management, he's got more money than God.
Did he receive a tip for this?
I don't know, but I just hope he doesn't, because I mean he's been on that program, The Boss. He's got more money,
Yeah.
and to give somebody, and a lot of these companies, they poor mouth and they got money behind them. Let's use the town's money instead of taking. I'm really against giving it. The taxpayer, I'm telling you, they're crying. They're making payments. So I'm really against these business people coming in here and wanting a tax break. And if any comes up at town meeting, I'm going to be very vocal about that.
Bob, how about you?
Those aren't anything the planning board handles or has a
Right.
role in. I think maybe more on a case-by-case basis, I'd want to know what the
But if
what
they
the
present a
plans were.
project to the planning board that requires approval, combined with a TIP program, then I guess if you approve it, you're basically approving the TIF program too.
But I think by law, only town meeting can approve a
Right.
TIF. I haven't had, that I recall, an incident where the project was tied to a TIF. I think that's independent.
But overall, in general, I mean, just even if it has nothing to do with the planning board, are you in favor of TIFs or?
Well, I can tell you, I'm with Bob. I need to see the circumstances.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't take Romy's
Yeah.
position. I hear for what Romy's saying, and I agree with his principle.
But sometimes when you offer those, the long-term benefits outweigh the short-term,
Exactly.
Yeah, they
an
should-
extra $100,000 in taxes, long-term, usually they run 3 to 5 years, I think.
Yeah.
My
But
preference would
I hope we're not
be-
giving any TIFs to recycling plants. I don't think we are, but, I don't think we are, but,
I mean, my preference, my personal preference would not to be to give it, but I realize we have to level the playing field with other competitors for these businesses. So that's a way to do that.
Okay, any comments, Rome?
No, I just, I'm not backing down on that program to give these business people a tax break.
Well, let me ask you this, if you guys are re-elected or you're elected, what's your vision or your plan for the first 100 days of your elected office? I always like that question. I like to see aggressive plans in place and people going after projects and stuff. Do you have anything that you'd immediately like to start tackling as a planning board member?
Well, I think what I would do is I would watch, I'd watch the other members, and I mean, they're doing a tremendous job, and I'm just going to watch and take notes.
Bob?
I think right now, probably, what I want to do is sink my teeth into reestablishing sort of the authority of the planning board. As I say, these two cases I've mentioned on Salem Road and Cook Street, they really concern me that there's a pattern developing of circumventing the planning board, and in the process, bringing in, I don't want to say too much in case one of these comes to us, but, I'm very concerned about, what kind of businesses go and what kind of zones in Billerica. And so, and I want the authority and integrity of the planning board to, to be reinstated. We took a bad hit with that Akeson Cell Tower case, and I don't think there was any reason for it. And so I think that might be my prime goal. Right now, the number of projects coming before us, it's not. We're not being overwhelmed. The economy in Billerica is still recovering. So I think maybe the role and parameters of the planning board in reasserting our rights under the general laws.
Dave?
I'd have to agree with Bob. I mean, there's a couple of warrant articles I'd like to sponsor, and that be in line with what Bob's saying. One would be for town council to be, some portion of the revenue or the budget to be assigned to the planning board autonomously of other parties' decision-making. That would be a big one for me.
When is the next review of the charter due? It's every 10 years, isn't it?
It is every 10 years, and I'm not sure when it comes up.
I would think it's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'd like to see, like, I sponsored this thing with the garage in North Billerica. That, one of the things that I wanted to mention earlier, I didn't get a chance, is the planning board isn't like, it's not a mechanical process, meaning like, it just follows autocratically. Sometimes things come to us that are brought by the residents. And this garage issue about the setbacks and the height and where it can be placed on the property came through the residents. And we had to hear the residents' concern and act on that. I mean, here you have your constituent group coming in. So I'd like to see maybe I bring that up only because I want to tag into the fact that the thing about the length of time really bothers me. And I just want to make it known that there are other things that we do other than review.
I would think
development.
anybody in the business should be prepared to spend 90 days, 3 months,
Yeah.
getting an approval for a huge
Yeah.
project. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, that anybody that's knowledgeable or doesn't want to take shortcuts and do it right already knows, I'm into this for 90 to 120 days. And they're already planning a construction phase to begin after they get the
Exactly.
approval,
Yeah.
as opposed to, I got to get started on this. You guys
Yeah.
got to, putting the pressure on the planning board or any board in town.
Yeah, and I think it's mostly a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Yeah,
The idea
definitely.
that we're, that things are getting slowed down and bogged down. I think that's smoke and mirrors. And unless someone wants to put an example on the table.
Well, it's always the
yeah.
number one complaint, it's
Yeah,
just like throwing
yeah.
it against the wall.
Yeah.
That's working.
Exactly.
That sticks.
Yeah.
And then when that one wears out, there'll be another argument. You don't like me.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
We all
don't
know
like
That
me.
I understand.
All right, we're not gonna go there. Let me ask you, you had mentioned the master plan and sticking to it.
Yeah.
Do you see anything on the horizon, or is anything before the planning board, or is anybody working in town to attract any businesses that are gonna be coming in that we should probably be mentioning in the planning board, master plan to, before they even decide to come in? Or, I would think this should be pulled out every time somebody has a project and see how it fits into the plan that the voters voted on.
Yeah.
And approved.
Well, I hate to go back to the project that got me interested in planning issues, but way back 5 or 6 years ago with the supposed, mall project up there. But anyone that reads the master plan knows that there are 6 basic premises of the master plan, and one basically said we should be, especially in our core areas of town, avoiding big box types of stores. And what does our economic development team present? A big box store right in the middle of Billerica. So, and that was just like, there's the master plan, it's like black and white. Why aren't we following it? Why aren't we working with, and I think in the case of that applicant or that owner, we're sort of taking the whip to saying, let's come up with something that works with our town and advances our image and makes you some money. But, yeah.
I don't know that a lot of people use the master plan. I mean, it's like a guide, but, it's like a zoning bylaw or a building code. I mean, if the town's committed to it and we're investing on revising it every so many years, I think it should be pulled out. I agree with your point about, let's look at it. Does this development fit the town's will, what the residents want for their community?
Yeah.
I've heard other candidates bring it up all the time, Jack.
Rob, what do you think about the master plan, sticking to it? We've
think-
spent a lot of money on these plans.
I think
It's a great plan.
I think they stick to it. That thing with the Home Depot, that should have been on the outskirts of town. It never should have been where they were. And Bob, you got a lot to keep them out of town, because having something like that right in the center is ridiculous.
What did the master plan call for in the center of town?
Smaller types of businesses, probably more along the independent lines, but just smaller. Like, even like some people talk about, there are some of those orange big box stores that are like 40,000 square feet, small versions. Even that maybe wouldn't have been at odds, but you know, smaller, and actually there's an encouragement of the mixed-use type of development too in the master plan. So the point is, if we have a master plan, which I think is a great idea, it also talks about open space and our riverways, and you know, I don't think there was a consistency between a cell tower on the edge of the Shawshene River and a soccer field in our master plan. So it's like, and by the way, I think that's administration and management. You have a plan, and maybe it's executive, maybe it's the board of directors too, saying, let's get on this plan and let's stick to it. And when management wants to stray from it, you say sorry. I think successful communities have really
stuck to their plan.
have adhered to their plan, and you see the results.
We're going to wrap it up. Any final comments, or do you guys have a question you want to throw out for last couple minutes of debate? Or
I'd like to say this one thing. A lot of times when these things come up, and I'll give you an example on the center, very well respected Fire Chief Anthony Capaldo, he said, it's tight. And if they listened to him, they would have saved a pile of money. I mean, here's a fire chief, been doing it for 40 years, doing a great job, and abundance of knowledge. And I think that we should listen to some of these people with smarts. The other thing is, you know, when they developed that center, I'll tell you, the old timers on the building, and as far as designing the centers that they did way back, I'm telling you, they were professionals, I'll tell you. And I'm telling you, they can't compete with what they did. An example is that library in the center. You should see the workmanship in that. It's unbelievable. That's it.
all right. Any final comments, Bob?
No, just that first of all, thanks for having us. I like this format, and I'd like to see more opportunities like this. And also, I'm looking forward to continuing to work on the planning board for the next 3 years. So, you know, I hope people get out and vote and consider me.
Dave?
Thanks. I also like this format. I like the
Interaction.
the discourse and discussion of the issues. Also, if anybody, I too am hoping to get back on the planning board. If anybody wants to contact me, it's D. Kinsella, KINSELLATBC @gmail.com.
Thank you. All right, that wraps up the planning board segment of the candidates forum. There are 3 openings. Dave Saviano, who is currently on the board, did not seek re-election. Dave Kinsella and Bob Casey are incumbents, being challenged by Rome Capabianco and Matt Badcock, who couldn't be here. He's away for the weekend. So I encourage people, strongly encourage people to get out and vote, not for this office, but every office, and exercise your right to vote and participate in local government. And the election is April 6th, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And if you're not sure where to vote, where your precinct is, we did do some redistricting a couple of years ago. Contact the town clerk at 978-671-0924, and make sure you go to the right polling place. Thank you for watching.